Greetings, friends. In this short little video, what I want to do is provide you the very briefest of introductions to qualitative research methodology. We'll be spending a lot of time on quant the next 5 weeks in this course. But what I want to do is just lay the foundation for quantitative research. A number of the topics that we'll be covering in this video will be covering again throughout the next several weeks. And so you don't need to master everything we're going to be talking about in the next few minutes. But at least this provides you a little bit of an introduction to quant and kind of provides you a little bit of the overview of where we're going to be going. In this particular video, what we want to cover is the basic assumptions, the philosophical assumptions of quantitative research, describe a variable, and then be able to describe the differences between descriptive and inferential statistics. Be able to describe the 3 measures of central tendencies, and then a little bit of work on standard deviations. So as we've covered before in our very first night in the course, the basic philosophical underpinnings of quantitative research are grounded in what we call a post-positive philosophical assumption. Basically, if you're a quant person, you have a very optimistic view about what is knowable and understandable in life. And more importantly, that pretty much everything can be turned into a variable. That means that you can quantify just about everything in life can be in some ways reduced to variable. We might have to find instruments to be able to measure things that aren't often associated with things that are seen and measurable, but that can be done if you're a quantitative research methodologist. At the heart of quantitative research is a variable. And so whereas in grounded theory and in qualitative research we take data and we use various kinds of operations to be able to understand that data, we code things and we take them and put them into themes and describe those themes using rich, thick description. For a quantitative person, you take that data and you move it into a variable. So in doing this, in taking data and moving it into a variable, what you are then able to do is provide or to do several different kinds of statistical functions that would enable you to be able to show comparisons and differences and relationships between those variables. We'll be talking a lot about this when we start actually doing quantitative analysis. But if you can, at the very beginning, have a good understanding what a variable is, that it is something that you can observe, I mean, it's something that actually is tangible, and because it's tangible, it can be measured in some kind of way. And the third thing about a variable is it has to vary. It has to be some change amongst the members of the population group regarding this particular variable. So if you take a test or if you observe behavior, those are things that can be measured, and then you can translate that into a number that the quantitative person would be able then to utilize. Examples of variables, any kind of demographic data, gender, ethnicity, income, and so on. Test scores, whether it's from a standardized test like an IQ test or accumulation of scores like a GPA, any number of test scores can be used. If you are doing observations and you count things, count the number of times somebody does things, somebody interacts in a certain kind of way, you can count that. But perhaps the most powerful kind of variable, one that we use often in educational research, is a construct. And what a construct does is makes what's called the unseen seen. So what you're able to do is take something that exists in somebody's mind and then translate that into a variable. And the way you do that oftentimes is to take a mental construct, something that exists, attitude or an opinion or a particular disposition. There are literally thousands of these kinds of internal mental constructs that we can't see or observe, but we can actually find expressions of them. We can give people a survey and ask their opinion. or we can ask them to perform various kind of functions that would allow for us to be able to see if a particular kind of ability or disposition is there. We do this all the time with personality inventories. We go ahead and we give people these assessments, and from those assessments we take mental constructs and turn them into something observable and measurable and varies, would be the instrument that measures things, and come up with a score. Just we can do that with any kind of a variable or any kind of a construct, even something like love. Does this person love me? Well, let me count the ways. We change a construct into a variable by measuring an expression of that. If you love somebody, what do they do? If you love somebody, you engage in certain kind of activities. You buy them flowers, or you spend time talking to them. Those are measurable events. Or you can ask somebody, do you perceive that that person loves you? And they can respond by quantifying that. We do that all the time with kids. We say, how much do you love me? I love you this much. And we throw our hands wide open. And so that you can take something like love and make it into a variable. Now we'll be talking about this at length, especially when we get to SPSS, but there are different kinds of variables. Variables that are nominal variables. See the word letter N and M. Think of name. A nominal is a name. So we can assign a variable of gender or ethnicity to an individual, and we could ask them to quantify that. So if you're a male, fill in this number, or circle this number 1, female 2, or vice versa. And ethnicity, you have a list of 6 that we use at our institution. We can assign a number. Number 1 would be Hispanic, number 2 Asian American, and so on. Or a variable could be the rank order that someone is, first, second, or third. This is different than a scale, in that in an ordinal there's no expression of the distance between first, second, and third, whereas a scale there is. A GPA, 1/10 of a point, whether it's 3.4 to 3.5 or 2.2 to 2.3, that difference is the same all up and down the scale. Whereas an ordinal, person can come in first by a wide margin, second and third can be quite close. So these become important differences about variables as we begin to work with them. Now, in statistics, there are 2 basic kinds of statistical operations: descriptive stats and inferential stats. By far the most powerful branch of statistics is inferential. We'll be talking about those in the next several weeks. But we use descriptive stats all the time. When we talk about what we call measures of central tendencies, mean, median, and mode, those are just describing a particular data set and not performing any operation on it. We'll talk about that in just a second, a little more, hopefully become a little clearer. So the nice thing is that there are research questions that ask for different kinds of statistics to be performed. So if you wanted to just find out how frequently somebody feels some way or does something, you would use descriptive statistics to be able to do that. So in your study, you will definitely use descriptive statistics, at least some part, whether you're doing quantitative or qualitative analysis, because there will be part of your study that is descriptive. The gender or ethnicity or the years of experience of the folks that you are studying. When you do that, here is a chart, a table, and APA don't need to memorize this, but APA has very definite ideas about how these tables are to be constructed. Basically, there are 3 horizontal lines, no vertical lines, the heading between the top 2 lines, and then all the data underneath it. Notes underneath, the table number on top. And again, APA will give you more detail on this. We just wanted to put those here for you to be aware that when you describe something using descriptive statistics, that there's a formatted way of doing that. Now, the easiest kind of descriptive statistics is what we call measures of central tendency, the mean, median, and mode. The mean is what we normally think of as average, the median, the middle number, and the mode, the number that occurs the most often. Perhaps a nice little graph here would help us and to help describe how important these are. Here's a distribution of income in the United States. These represent the thousands of dollars a year that people make, and the chart talks about the percentage of families who are in those particular income categories. So way out here, when we talk about the 1%ers, well, we're talking about these people right out here who make tremendous sums of money. But you see it makes a difference in how you, what you talk about as average and what that tells you about income in America. If you said that the average income was $63,000, you would be correct. The average income is $49,445. That would be correct. The average income, $17,000, depending on what you mean by average. That's why we're more specific. The mean income, that means if you added up all the money that everybody in America made, divided it by the number of people making that money, $63,000, that sounds like a fairly good income. But if you took the median income, which is the number that divides the top half from the population from the bottom half, that's a different number altogether. That's 49,445. But if you look here at the number that's the most common, then that's significantly different, 17,000. You get a completely different idea about income in America. So when we talk about income, when we talk about averages and income, it can make a huge difference as to how those are calculated. So this ends the first part of this presentation. Click on the second video for a discussion about standard deviation and the bell curve.